A sports talk show in the morning that actually talks sports? Mike and Mike in the Morning. Serving sports fans in Dallas-Fort Worth for over a decade. Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on ESPN Dallas, 103.3 FM.
The football show on ESPN Dallas 103.3 FM, taking you from Rangers baseball earlier this afternoon to Mavericks and Bulls tonight. Mavs Insider coming up at the bottom of the hour right now. Ted Emmerich, Tim McMahon with you, joined by Bill Jones of CBS11 and TXA21. Certainly a must-follow on Twitter at CBS Bill. You're all about the draft, Bill. We certainly appreciate the time. You have done a pair of 7-round Cowboys mock drafts. Who takes the time to do that, first of all? But what I find interesting, Bill, is that neither of them features Alabama safety Mark Barron.
You haven't seen Mock Draft 3.0.
Uh-oh.
Which is now posted
okay.
on CBSDFW.com.
We'll tweet it out.
Okay, yeah.
I tweeted it out yesterday. You were just too busy, probably. Rush hour, Friday afternoon, something like that. I don't know.
So you're on the Barron bandwagon now?
No, I'm not. No.
What's your opinion of Barron then?
This is Saturday. That was Friday. This is a new day.
Oh, okay.
No, actually, what I'm doing with those mock drafts is I'm just, and in fact, I've been listening to you all the way through my half-hour traffic jam getting out of a downtown parking lot in downtown Fort Worth from an appearance I had to make at the Fort Worth Arts Festival.
All right.
I've enjoyed the NFL draft talk all the way home, and I agree with much of what you say. But anyway, I'm painting out the scenarios. Okay, what if they take an offensive lineman in the first round? What if they take a defensive lineman, safety, on down with all their needs, which is they can go any number of about 4 different directions, I think, in the first round. Mm-hmm. What would their draft be like if they take, say, Mark Barron in the first round? Well, then they need to take maybe an offensive lineman in the second round. You take a defensive lineman in the third round. And, I mean, there's a price that you're going to pay if you go at a certain position in the first round where you're not going to be able to get, say, an edge rusher because they're all going to be, the quality ones are going to be off the board by, say, the third round. So it's just kind of painting these different scenarios. It's not these aren't what I think they should do, but more like a what-if mock draft.
One of the mock drafts you had a scenario that I hadn't seen anywhere, and Teddy is so anti-trade down that I know he's not down with this.
Don't do it.
And people don't look at tight end as a big need, obviously, when you have a perennial Pro Bowler in Jason Witten. Obviously, Martellus Bennett's gone, so there is a need there. But Kobe Fleener, the Stanford tight end, you had the Cowboys trading down, I believe picking up an extra third-rounder in the process, and picking a tight end in the first round. Is this something you really believe they should do, or is this just you being wild and crazy and having fun?
It's having fun with it, number one. But there are only about 3 guys that I am comfortable with them taking at 14, and those would be Fletcher Cox, who's not going to wind up at 14. He's going to be drafted probably 7th. David DeCastro. Mm-hmm. I think I might be able to be sold on Mark Barron. I'm just still a little sketchy on him.
I can't get you on Courtney Upshaw?
No, I'm not. I can't go Courtney Upshaw. And mainly because I think a lot of what he did in college was he was manhandling lesser opponents, and I don't know that he can necessarily do that in the NFL. But I think he'll have a nice career. I don't know that he is a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think he might be more of a 4-3. He's a tweener there.
Yeah. And
I just don't think. I'm just not sure that he in the first round. I think you can find someone who basically. I don't know that you're improving all that much on Anthony Spencer there. I know a lot of people would get.
Yeah, but guess what? He'll make as much in 4 years as Spencer's going to make this season, and Spencer wants a raise from that.
He's a really good football player. Getting back on this scenario, so if you're at 14 and you've got a group of 6 or 7 guys that, I like this. I like any number of these 6 or 7 guys where you'd be comfortable trading down 4, 5, 6 spots, whatever it might be, where you're picking up a third-round pick. Then then say you're at 20 now. All right, now you're in a group and you still have 2 or 3 guys that you like. Well, what about the scenario here? You have an obvious need at tight end. What if you could put together a Gronkowski-Hernandez situation on your offense where you draft Kobe Fleener, who I think is a Jason Witten clone with 4.45 speed at his pro day. He's not as an inline blocker necessarily, but he's a willing blocker. And in that offense at Stanford, starting with when Harbaugh was coaching him, he had to block. It's obviously a pro-style type offense, but he also can be a slot receiver for you. He's the Aaron Hernandez to the Jason Witten, Rob Gronkowski on your offense. You saw what the Patriots did last year with those two guys, 170 catches and 24 touchdowns between them. I actually think that's what Jason Garrett thought he was getting with Martellus Bennett.
Sure.
And Bennett didn't develop.
They got a glorified swing tackle with him.
Right.
That's interesting because they do have needs at for depth at tight end, obviously, and third receiver. And you're saying, hey, forget the traditional third receiver. This guy can be that plus your tight end depth.
And just the match, and when you break the huddle with those two guys at tight end, the defense doesn't know whether you're running the ball or passing the ball. I mean, you can line up with the 2 tight end set. But anyway, what you're also doing by picking up the 3rd round pick, now you're getting 4 of the top 81 players in the draft instead of 3 of the top 81 players in the draft. But again, I'm only proposing this if they're sitting there and, DeCastro's gone, Cox is gone, if they think they like Quentin Coples or whoever. If the guys that they really like are gone at 14, I don't have a problem with them trading down a few spots if you're acquiring a 3rd round pick, like an early 3rd, where you can then satisfy. Say you take Fleener, maybe you go that route, then you get a defensive lineman or an offensive guard in the 2nd round. You get a cornerback and a defensive lineman or a Ryan Broyles.
There you go. I was just going in that direction, Bill. Of course, the Oklahoma connection. Bill Jones, CBS11, TXA 21, with us on the football show, ESPN Dallas 103.3 FM. Is there a player out there after the 1st round, even after the 2nd round? I know Ryan Broyles can't be considered a sleeper, but somebody who is a diamond in the rough, if you will, whether there be red flags here and there, injuries or whatnot, that the Cowboys should be looking for, should be trying to uncover?
I think there are several cornerbacks that they probably are thinking that they could take in the 3rd round. There's about 5 of them that might be available in the 3rd round. Broyles is one in the 3rd round that I think they definitely have their eye on. I'm sure they would love to take him at 113, their first 4th round pick, but I don't think he's going to last that long. Now, there's another wide receiver who I really like out of the Sun Belt Conference, T.Y. Hilton in Florida International.
And they did have him in. They did have him in the Valley Ranch.
That's right, they did. And I love that kid. It seems like every year there's a slot receiver that I fall in love with just watching this tape. Go back to Mike Thomas out of DeSoto, who wound up with Jacksonville in the 09 draft. And
Andre Roberts, who Terrence Newman put in the Hall of Fame.
That's exactly right.
But he only torches the Cowboys.
What's that?
He only torches the Cowboys, but he always does.
That's right. Randall Cobb was my guy last year, and obviously Ryan Broyles is my guy this year, but if not Broyles, then T.Y. Hilton is the guy.
Hilton's interesting. He's a sub-4.4 40 guy. He's a punt returner, kickoff returner, slot receiver. He's small, and one stat that I saw that really was a red flag to me, 12 career fumbles.
I didn't see that.
That's a pretty scary stat.
That closely.
Let me ask you, though, you obviously are a big Oklahoma guy. I know that you've kept a close eye on the Sooners, obviously, throughout the years and certainly recently. 2 guys that the Cowboys also had in addition to Broyles, James Hanna, the tight end, and Ronell Lewis, the kind of, he would be an outside linebacker here. Lewis was a huge recruit, had all sorts of academic issues, didn't put up great pass rushing numbers. Wondering what you think about him. And then Hanna, physically unbelievable.
Flower Mound product,
sub 4.5 speed. Why in that offense didn't he light the world on fire?
You know, I don't know if you saw him at the combine, but he did light the combine on fire with at first that timed him at a 4.42 with his feet. And if you saw him catch an 80-yard touchdown pass against Oklahoma State 2 years ago, then you knew he had that kind of speed. Now, if you also saw him at the combine right after running that 40, you also saw him drop 2 passes. And that's when I said, oh, well, maybe that is why OU never threw the ball to Hannah, and why everyone was so surprised when he caught a pass and went 80 yards for a touchdown. He is as evidenced by his workout. You know, he's a hard-working guy, and I think he will be a probably 8-year player in the league, but as a second tight end, I don't see him being a frontline tight end. But as a second or third tight end, Ronell Lewis is a very interesting guy, and you mentioned his academic issues. I think from what I hear from the people in Norman is that he's a good kid. He came from little Dewar, Oklahoma, 8-man football, and I just don't think he was prepared academically. He's a country boy. He wasn't prepared academically and couldn't handle the schoolwork, and basically Stoops said, yeah, you need to turn pro because, they had a hard time getting him eligible to start the season, and then they wound up, he was academically ineligible or at least suspended for academic reasons, the Oklahoma State game and their bowl game this year. But he's immediately a third down rusher, great special teams player. He knocked out more kickoff return guys than I've ever seen. But then again, we don't have kickoff returns anymore in the league, so that kind of diminishes that value.
Bill, thanks so much for jumping on. Have a great weekend.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Bill Jones, CBS 11 and TXA 21, one of the area's great draft nicks.
Really do strongly recommend him to follow on Twitter this week at CBS Bill. He does his homework and is very opinionated and informed. That's a great combination on Twitter.
Coming up as we close out the football show, a couple of positions the Cowboys absolutely have to address. And how about these scenarios from ESPN's Todd McShay? Some surprising names on this list for the Cowboys.